네, 다음은 세 번째 기조연설을 시작하겠습니다. 세 번째 기조연설은 좋은 일과 함께하는 스마트 공장이라는 주제로 함께 하실 텐데요. 스테드리크 나이케 독일 지멘스 그룹 부회장님께서 발표를 해주시겠습니다. 네, 독일 베를린과 뮌헨에 봉사를 둔 세계적인 전기 전자기업 지멘스. 네, 글로벌 선도 기업입니다. 스테드리크 나이케 독일 지멘스 그룹 부회장님을 뜨거운 박수로 맞아주십시오.
All right, I hope you can hear me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a special honor for me to be here in Seoul, and I want to thank you for inviting us. I just want to give a third perspective. So you had two perspectives. You had Richard, which gave you the view of the rise of the machines. I'm just going to define it. It's a bit like the Terminator, if you've ever seen the film, the rise of the machines, they're coming, what are you going to do? And you had Polly saying something very, very important, is that there's people which are left behind. They're the forgotten. I'm going to give you a third perspective. It's going to be very optimistic, perhaps overly optimistic on the future of work. But if we look at work, it's something which is fundamentally human. It's something which always existed, the idea of work. And we need to understand, as we go to the industrial age, what does it mean? So for some, the rise of the robots or the rise of the machine is going to be a growing concern. It's basically going to put people out of job. It's going to be competing. And there's the myth of the machine, which is going to say, come on worker, come on CEO, step aside, I'm going to take over. There's an American business writer which once commented, so how does the future of a factory will look like? And he says the future of the factory will only have two employees in the future factory. It will be a man and it will be a dog. Okay? The man will feed the dog, and the dog will make sure the man doesn't touch anything. That's the future of work, and I don't think it's true. I think it's actually going to be very different. And there's always been a fear of technological advances that, and I think it's even the Luddites in England in the 19th century, which said machines are coming in a fraudulent and deceitful manner towards us. So we need to be careful. It's a ploy against labor practices. I actually believe that we are now 200 years later, we're the fourth industrial revolution, and there's a lot of good things which are coming our way. So let me share this with you. And I think I used the same photo that Richard did, which is, hey, am I your new boss? Am I your new colleague? Is this going to be my new chairman? And it's true that even if we look at digitalization, automated assembly line, end-to-end manufacturing integration, we need to redefine the work between man and machine. And I want to talk about how this digital transformation has changed economies, especially manufacturing at Siemens. I'm going to take a very German example. I'm going to take a very Siemens example and just share what I see from our side. And what does it mean for employees and leadership? Now, the one thing digitalization has done is has put the consumer in the driver's seat. I mean, industrialization, you all know Henry Ford, which basically said, I'm going to mass produce cars. Everybody could have access to cars, and you can choose any color as long as it's black, right? So the Germans took the same technology when they built the Volkswagen Beetle. They had the same car, you could choose the color. This was the advance of sort of German manufacturing. You put color to have different cars on the Volkswagen production line. But if we go forward and we look at beyond the Beetle, the current part of life, and I just talked to the CEO of Hyundai. If you build a car today, if you're a Mercedes or Hyundai, the answer is completely different. The answer is, I want to have the most individual car possible. I want to have the most individual shoe possible. I want to individualize my products. And I will choose any color, any design, as long as it's not the same of my neighbor. So there's a huge individualization which has come, which means the idea of mass production where we came from has completely changed. Now we look at Germany, and it's probably not as bleak as the UK, and we're going to talk about it. It's Europe's powerhouse in terms of manufacturing. It's a stronghold of capability. And if you see the use of robots, in the industrial robots per 1,000 workers, in 1994 were 2, which was 4 times the US. And now in 2014, we have 7.6 robots per 1,000 workers. In the US, there's only 1.6. So we really went on and embraced the rise of the machine, even if there's a different definition of robots, and said we're going to go this direction. In the car industry, we have 6 to 100 robots per 1,000 employees. It's even more sort of developed, and that's why if you looked at Korea is so advanced. But what has been the impact of labor, which is the big discussions which we have? So the University of Würzburg, Mannheim and Düsseldorf looked at the 20 years and looked at the effect the growth of industrial manufacturing had on the German labor market. And despite the significant growth of robots, they hadn't made any dent in the aggregate German employment. Germany is factual at full employment at the moment. Once industry structures, demographics are taken into account, we find the effect close to zero. So I'm just giving you a counterpart and a counter sort of statistic to look at this one. So there are changes to be sure of what the work will be, but we can, if you create a social contract, you can retrain your workforce, you can redeploy your workforce, as long as you make sure that you don't forget the people which are being cut out of the digitalization, to make sure they go forward. And if you compare the US to Germany, we have twice the amount of manufacturing labor force, so it's very important for us to look at it. So my message is, we went from a manufacturing which was mass production to individualized production. We're taking more and more robots, but if you do it well, you don't have to take people out of jobs, at least up to now. So we're looking now at the fourth industrial revolution, which is a quantum leap, and I agree with Richard that it will redefine a lot of things. So Industry 1.1 was mechanical production, plants powered by water and steam, mechanization of work. 2.2 was mass production using division of labor, electricity, Taylorism, the idea. Industry 4.0, use of robotics, specialized work, and we know 4.0, the idea of cyber physical system. And the machines have, and when they're specialized, they're better at Go, they're better at assembling, they're better at anything specifically. But we still have the idea of analytics, creativity, which we haven't discussed in more views. So we need to understand what does it mean. And if we look at the employees in the industrial sector, we went from 6%, we sent a lot of people from the farms to the land. We peaked at 13 million, and we're at 11 million, which is still a large part of our industry, which is in the automatic sector. But today, if we want to satisfy the customer demand, we have to change. If we go to this mass, everybody wants its own shoe, its own jacket, its own car, and its own environment. We have to redefine how things are being produced. And that's where Industry 4.0, where Germany is looking at, is how can we be fast? Because I'm not willing to wait more than a couple of weeks for a new product. How can I be flexible? How can I configure my own car? How can I be digital? How can I define and see it before it even is being built? So we at Siemens are not a car company. We don't produce consumer goods. What we produce, and that's why I'm fundamentally optimistic, we are the #1 manufacturer of automation systems. We automate, we build the system around the world which build these cars, build these capabilities. And we are looking at how do we build these systems which are more and more effective and digitize it. So the idea, and the biggest change we have done, and you need to understand, it's not the physical world, it's the idea of abstracting the digital world. Siemens has spent $10 billion to become the 10th biggest software company on earth. We are the ones which, with Werner von Siemens, invented the electrical principle, started #1, 2, and 3 industrial revolution with the industrial revolution, existed for 170 years, and said we need to have a physical and also a software world. So we spent $10 billion to become the 10th biggest software company on earth, because what we do now is we build what we call a digital twin. We build a digital twin of the product before it's even being designed. We test it digitally, and then once these things are happening, we put it into production. So we can actually build a complete image of something before it's even created in the real world to create it afterwards in the real world. So we build products, we analyze data to be able to do this, but we need to understand what does it mean? What does it mean to have a holistic and digital approach? I gave you this overview because I'm going to give you very concrete examples. This is Amberg. It's probably one of the most advanced digital factories, at least in Siemens, probably on earth. This Amberg which is our most state-of-the-art, which uses the idea of a digital twin, which uses the automation, which has a lot of robots, has over 25 years, it exists for 25 years, has become from a very classical production to a very digital production. In these 25 years, we have the same amount of people working in this factory, 1,200 people working in this factory. But the efficiency of this factory has increased 1,000 times. So the same plant is 1,000 times more productive. And I talked about fast, flexible, and efficient. Fast, we produce one product per second. It's 15 million products per year. It has 99.9998% built-in quality. It's flexible. It produces up to 1,200 different variants of the products to 60,000 customers worldwide. And it has increased in efficiency 1,000 times. So the key thing in this plant, and we looked at future of work, is how do humans and machines work together in a more sort of creative way, in a more sort of capable way to achieve this flexibility and this fastness. So let's look at the let's look at the machines first. The machines we have are remarkable because the idea of AI and robots coming together, the machines are learning constantly. They're constantly learning, and the ideas of the Japanese idea of Kaizen, etc., are integrated in the self-learning capabilities of the machines. They work at utter precision, at amazing speed humans could never ever sort of achieve, and they work in work conditions which could be very bad. So things which are flexible, which need to be fast, which are bad environments, we have automated. But these things, if you think about it, if you look at the AI, the same is happening to the white collar. This is a blue collar aspect of things, the white collar aspect of things. Machine starts understanding language, speaking language, dialects. If we look at chatbots, if we look at Amazon, if we look at Echo as Siri. So we need to see on how this comes together. Siemens is building at the moment, just for you to understand, not only this most sort of advanced factory in the world, it also builds spider bots. So in our research center in Princeton, an R&D center in Princeton, we build mobile swarm robots to build complete ships, assembling them together. So I know I'm going into the future, and the question is, what does it mean? It's a huge potential, but what does it mean for blue collar and white collar? So the same which applies for blue collar, that you have to, so just a couple of facts. The same which applied for blue collars is going to apply for white collars. Is the idea that artificial intelligence, so robots take over blue-collar jobs which are repetitive, dangerous, etc. The same happens for artificial intelligence. An IDC study said is robots and AI is not the same, but they're moving together at the same time. The idea is that artificial intelligence, if we assess basically the impact on the labor market, this is the amount of job profiles which are at risk through AI, with what we know about AI today, 35%. Actually, there's more jobs at risk on AI on the white-collar sector than there's on the blue-collar sector. It's a very important thing to understand. If you're a blue-collar worker, you will learn and you will get new skills. If you're white-collar sector, there's certain things which you do which are absolutely repetitive, which will disappear. Only 9% of jobs in the blue-collar sector are at risk through AI, and 30% of jobs in AI could be at risk. But the researcher also note that there's new jobs coming, creative jobs, service jobs, and they need to be, of course, with the social balance being well paid. Presentation, training, consultant, social work, healthcare, these are jobs which are much less affected by AI or robots. But the key thing, and I think Polly said it very clearly, the lower the education level, the more you are at risk. So there's the danger of society being torn apart where everything which can be done by robots, everything which can be done by AI will be done. There will be lots of jobs which are on the higher end of the spectrum, but the jobs for the low-level skilled workers is really sort of an issue. So that's the key sort of point on which I go back to Richard and Polly, is to say society and companies have a social responsibility to train up the workforce, to give them skills. I myself, just for you to understand, I'm a vice chairman of Siemens. I started with 18 as a vocational training. I'm half French, half German. My father said, son, you need to become more German. There's three pillars of German society. There's the state in Germany, there's the church in Germany, and there's Siemens. And I said, okay, so I joined Siemens, and I started working in an assembly line. I started doing sort of book entry. I started at the lowest level you can. Siemens trained me. I then went on to university and acquired another skills. But the idea of this flexibility that you could start at any part of society in Germany and rise through the ranks is extremely important because the company were invested in me. So if I go back to the Amberg factory, just to give you sort of a sense, this factory, in 1917, only 10% of our employees in the Amberg factory had a university degree. Today it's 38%. The vocational training, what I did first in Amberg in the 1970s, we had 34% which had vocational training. Now we have 52% which have vocational training in the company. And the unskilled labor went from 56 to 10%, which is really sort of the issue also which we needed to address. But it's the same amount of people which we employed, but they have much, much higher skills, and that's why the skill set is so important. I just wanted to give you sort of that example, because the idea is that artificial intelligence will not only change the way we manufacture, and we need to train our people up, it will also go into the products and the way we go with our products to work. So this is actually in Korea, and I'm just taking a Korea idea, is we taking this artificial intelligence and putting it into our products. Before, we used to have gas turbines, and we used to optimize them with manual calculations 4 times a year. Now we stream terabits of data out of this turbine and optimize it on the fly to reduce carbon emission, NOx emission, to make it more effective and go forward. So the idea is we're taking our capabilities into our products to make them actually better. So what will be the role of people in the future going forward? We have to adapt, and we have to think of new ways of creating employment. We need a stronger collaboration. We need to invest in developing blue collars and white collars, and we need to bring them together. So I'm just giving you an example. So what often happens, so we went to the best universities in the world to hire data scientists and really sort of the people which are building AI. And what did we do? We put them into the same factory which built trains, locomotive, for the last 100 years. And we said, you're going to work together. So you have somebody who's been working and knows how to build a train, a blue-collar worker, which has been teaching a data nerd on how often and why does a door fail. The biggest problem of efficiencies of a train system is that you often don't have the reliability because the door doesn't fail. So we put the right sensors, we did the calculation. We cannot now predict on the sound the door makes or on the vibration the door makes that it will fail in 5, 10, or 20 days. But this could only happen because we put the young people together with the blue-collar workers to be able to rethink what happened. I'm not sure that AI would automatically have had that creative idea to bring these different elements together on where do you put the sensors. That's how the future of work needs to come, is you need to break down the barriers. You need to train the people and break down the barriers to bring them closer together. But that means also you as a leader, me as a leader, have to be different. And that's the other aspect I wanted to basically say. It's people and not technology that shapes the digital transformation. I know that if work is very repetitive, very clearly defined, you have a very simple hierarchical structure. And it works in Germany same ways than it works in Korea. You have a boss, you have an employee, it's very clear, you know what everyone is doing. The future of work is much more complex. The future of work is basically the employee, not the boss, stands, because if you need to be fast and flexible, the employee stands at the center. The colleague, the boss, the influencer, the mediator, the mentor, the coach, all of those work together. And the factory worker becomes the coach of the data scientist to be able to think of this door problem. But you need, in order to have agility, transparency, and trust, you need to redefine the way actually organizations are being structured and the speed the organization are driving forwards with. You have to give, we need to not only give employees directions, we need to give their own individuality a path to reach that potential. So you need to actually unearth them, not make them a cog in the machine. And you probably know, this is the past of work. The past of work is, this is Charlie Chaplin, and this is a cog. Is basically, you are just part of a huge machinery which constantly repeats itself. The new work is changing all the time. Every customer wants something different. Every factory needs to adapt to it. Everyone needs to work much closer together to be able to do it. British author Richard Barrett said, cultural transformation begins with the personal transformation of the leaders. Organizations don't transform, leaders do. So we need to start with ourselves to set a good example. I'm coming to 2 points, and I'm going to say what I'm going to answer. I'm going to try to answer what Richard said and also Polly said. Is transforming the leadership is part of the solution. What do we need to do? We need to do a couple of things together. These are basically our blue and white collar workers which are working at the moment on virtualizing the environment we're in. We have first a social responsibilities as countries and as companies to invest in our blue and white collars. It's not that everybody needs to have a university degree, but even if you're a blue collar worker, you need to be given the skills. I stood in front of a new batch of apprentices in Germany 22 years after I was an apprentice. And I told these employees, each one of these employees, you had a 15-year-old from Germany, you had a 30-year-old from Syria, which was starting a training at Siemens. I told them, you are going to continuously learn. You're going to do this 2 to 3 years. You can become me. You can be vice chairman of one of the largest conglomerates in Europe if you put the training in. You don't have a limit to be able to do it. Not all of you will be, but you have that flexibility. Siemens is investing themselves 100,000 euros per apprentice to give them the skills at the beginning, and we're investing $600 million per year on training our employees. When we go to the US, we get the, why are you wasting 600 million on your employees? It's just a different mindset. We have to do this. So there's a social responsibility from the state and a social responsibility from us to be able to invest in our blue and white collar workforce. The second thing is we have to change the way we're going to work together to be able to unearth this capability of this digital and this physical world. Yes, the rise of the machine will rise, it's important, but we need to understand on how do we integrate it. How do we basically say robots are programmable, that's what they want to be programmed or program themselves. Humans want to be trusted. I really like Polly's aspect is humans want to be respected and trusted. Robots don't want to be trusted or respected. They are trusted or respected. Humans want to be. So as leaders, we need to understand how do we use robots and how do we use or integrate humans so that there's a much closer element to work together. I've been asked to come to an end, and I said, look, I'm an internal optimist, or I wouldn't be doing the job I'm doing. We as Siemens have a huge portfolio of industrial products, from trains, from automation, from energy distribution to building. And I think that we need to use this technology because we're going to be more and more people on Earth, and we need to move more efficient on how we're using those resources. There's also going to be a more flexibility. So as long as we don't leave people behind, we integrate them, I think we should embrace the rise of the machines. And we shouldn't wait for saying, hey, I'm a robot, please step aside. We should say, welcome robots, please help us. But humans, you're still our future. And what we do at Siemens to be able to do that is we actually, every second employee of Siemens is owning part of the company. We need to own this future together so that the robots, AI, are really sort of enabling our future to be brighter and not gloomier. Thank you.
네, 좋은 발표해 주신 세드릭 나이케 독일 지멘스 그룹 부회장님께 다시 한번 감사 인사드리겠습니다. Thank you very much for your informative presentation introducing the digital transformation as well as the new ways of working between AI robots and human. Thank you once again. 자, 그럼 지금부터 10분간 휴식 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 중회의실 A에서 커피가 다가가 준비되어 있으니 편안하게 이용해 주시면 되겠고요. 또 등록 데스크에서 받으셨던 프롬북 안에 보시면 질문지가 있습니다. 여러분들께서 기조연사를 들으시면서 질문이 있으신 분들께서는 거기서 작성해 주시면 저희 진행 요원들께서 발표 전에 토론 시간 전에 취합을 해서 토론 시간 때 발표를 하도록 하겠습니다. 꼭 기억해 주시기 바라겠습니다. 그럼 즐거운 휴식 시간 되시고 바로 이어지는 원탁 토론에도 많은 참여 부탁드리겠습니다. 고맙습니다.